Welcome to Girlfriend's Bible Study, a live Bible study with Connie and friends. Each week, Connie and her girlfriends engage in a lively conversation as they read and study scripture. So grab a pen, your journal, and your best friend and enjoy this enlightening Bible study.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bible Study Live with Connie and friends. Right now, it's just with Connie, but friends, they are a-coming. So I see that I have a green tinge today, and now it's changing. My color will just change. I feel like I'm in one of those movies where the color changes the whole time, but it's part of the plot. So like, Wizard of Oz or something weird. Anyway, tonight we are continuing our theme of rainy days. I'm just laughing at colors. Sorry guys, I'm yellow, a little green, feeling a little nauseated. Anyway, let's see if I can fix it. I don't know that I can. It's just gonna do what it's gonna do. We'll try this for a while. We'll see what that does. So we're continuing our April theme. So April showers bring May flowers. You guys have heard of that. So this month's theme is rainy days in the Bible. And we read last week about Elijah. It was a powerful story, very suspenseful. And as my sister Latrice said, it's one of those stories that if you start there, if you've never read the Bible and you start there, it's got everything. It's got humor, it's got suspense, it's got action. There's a lot going on. So this time we're reading about the first rain in the Bible, about Noah and the flood. And it's interesting when we think about a flood, of course, we think of water coming up, water overflowing. But of course, we know that floods happen from a lot of rain, or it could happen even from a lot of snow. But when a lot of moisture hits the ground in some form or fashion and it can no longer absorb it, it comes up. So in our basements, in the different places that it creates sinkholes. California has been dealing with an inordinate amount of rain this season since winter, and lots of floods and mudslides and just all the things. So, but often when I think of a flood, to be honest with you, when I think the word flood, just the word flood, I'm thinking water coming up from the deep. I don't think first, there's a flood, meaning water coming down from the heavens, too much of it, creating an overflow. But that is what happened with Noah. So we want to read about that. But I think because I dealt with floods in my house where there was a plumbing issue or something like that, it didn't come from rain. It came from some malfunction, some hose or pipe broke, and then, it flooded. So for some reason, that just stuck with me today, that this flood is from above and then overflowing, raining so much until it floods the whole earth, which is really deep. So let's read about it. All right, here we go. So we are reading in Genesis. In case you don't know where Noah is, it is in Genesis chapter 6, 7, and 8. And that is what we're reading. So feel free to join me. I'm reading from the New International Version of Genesis 6. And I have some things to say as we read about some certain things. So it says, when men began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Now, let me stop there. When it says the sons of God, my understanding from my study and from other people, other pastors and people who studied this, is the sons of God were referring to angels that were on the earth, and whether they were the bad angels that had been kicked out, or whether they were coming down from heaven. Either way, there's a distinction between the sons of God versus the daughters of men. And that's important to note. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years. which is really interesting. That's a really interesting statement. I'm not dealing with these people forever. I'm going to give them 120. The Nephilim, look that word up. The Nephilim. Ooh, that scared me. It always scares me whenever my sister comes on. She cracks up laughing. But yes, as you guys can see, every time there's any noise with the Zoom, I jump a mile. But Gina's here now. So hello, sister. Good to see you. So I'm going to read verse 4 from both the NIV and from the King James Version. Excuse me. I have to cough. Excuse me. All right. I've got some water. So Gina, we're reading in chapter 6 of Genesis. We're reading about Noah and the flood. So verse 4 says, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Let me read it from the King James Version. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Now, again, this is one of those things, like I said, through study and checking with pastors and historians about the Nephilim, their understanding is that the Nephilim were either fallen angels or just angels from heaven who decided to come down and get with the women of earth, because they saw that the daughters of men, as it said in verse 1, they saw that they were beautiful. And when it talks about the giants or the heroes of old, that they had children with them, there are also some scholars who believe that that is where, even Greek mythology and things like that, that it comes from that. Zeus and all of those gods that were on the earth that could do things or were larger than life, and giants and that kind of thing. So it is very interesting that they mention the Nephilim, which has a capital N, Nephilim, and then also they mention that they were giants and that they slept with basically daughters of men, which is interesting because he didn't say sons of men slept with daughters of men. That's not what he said. That's not what the word says. That's not what it says. So now we're on verse 5. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. We getting about there again, y'all, with the way people are treating each other and talking and doing and killing and all of that. I'm just saying. Anyways, the Lord saw that. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth. I'm not mad at him. I understand. And his heart was filled with pain, not anger, pain. And I can only imagine. Imagine you had a child and the child decided to be evil. And you had only poured into them good, but somebody else got it in your head and they just decided to, what would you do? Like, I think of like the parents of the Columbine killer and the parents of all of these people who do these horrible things. They are in pain. They did not know that their children were going to do this and grow up to be a killer. That's pain. So God was in pain at mankind. So the Lord said, I will wipe mankind, whom I have created from the face of the earth, men and animals and creatures that move along the ground and birds of the air, for I am grieved that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. This is the account of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all the people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. Tina and I were just talking about this. You gotta coat wood if it's gonna get wet. So it says like right there, Genesis, right from jump, they wanted to make sure it was clear. Anyway, this is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Make a roof for it and finish the ark to within 18 inches of the top. So make a roof and, so that there's just up to 18 inches, which is interesting because, get some fresh air or whatever. Put a door in the side of the ark and make it lower, middle, and upper. Oh, and make lower, middle, and upper decks. So I'm just going to do something real quickly on my phone to add, so, do a little math because, math is my thing. So, all right. The way you get your square footage of a house is, of a room is length times width, right? So he said 450 feet long and 75 feet wide. That's 33,750 square feet. That's how you figure out the square footage of a house, like a 10 by 10 room, or that kind of thing. That's how you figure it out. 33,000. Now we know a big house could be 2,000 square feet or 3,000 square feet. 33,750 square feet. And then it went up. I didn't even count the height. That's just one level. And then three levels of that. So imagine, because it said 45 feet high. So, and make 3 levels, a lower, a middle, and an upper. Yeah, it says. So imagine 15-foot ceilings, 3 levels. I'm just saying, the math is here in case you want to, do the computation. I am going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish. And it says, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons, and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. Will come to you to be kept alive. That's interesting. I missed that before when I read it before. He didn't have to go look for them, they came. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. The Lord, this is chapter 7. The Lord then said to Noah, go into the ark, you and your whole family, because I have found you righteous in this generation. Take with you, listen to this, because this was new to me. Take with you 7 of every kind of clean animal. And in the little footnote, it says 7 pairs. And I don't know if it was 7 pairs or not, but he said 7 of every kind of clean animal, a male and its mate. Oh, there it is. And 2 of every kind of unclean animal, a male and its mate. And also 7 of every kind of bird, male and female, to keep their various kinds alive throughout the earth. 7 days from now, I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made. And Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came on the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds and of all creatures that move along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark as God had commanded Noah, and clearly had commanded him. And after the 7 days, the flood waters came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, so he didn't cut him off at 120. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. So that first part, it's what I found interesting when we were talking about flood and how I think the flood is coming from up. And it says the springs of the great deep burst forth. So to me, that sounds like water that was there started to overflow, and because it says and the floodgates of heavens were open. So water that was here overflowed, burst forth, and water came from heaven. And rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to their kinds, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, everything with wings. Pairs of all creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. Came to him. I love that. And I missed that before. I mean, I guess I didn't think of him out there scouring for animals, but they came to him. The animals going in were male and female of every living thing. God had commanded me. Then the Lord shut him in, which is interesting. Because, you know, you see movies and they're going to the door and they put on the pulley. He says, the Lord shut him in. That's what it says. For 40 days, the flood kept coming on the earth. And as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 20 feet. The highest mountain covered by 20 feet of water. Every living thing that moved on the earth perished. Birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. Men and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds of the air were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. So it rained, it says, for 40 days, the flood came. For 40 days and 40 nights, the flood came, but the waters flooded the earth for 150 days, and that's 5 months. That's certainly more. I mean, if you do 30 days in a month and 150, so 5 times 30 is 150, 5 months they're in this ark. The flood waters have covered the earth for 5 months. And that's really important to know. Now, did you also notice that it said everything with air in its nostrils? So to me, that says some of the things that live in the water, because it said things that move along the earth, that flew through the air, that walked, that had breath in their nostrils. To me, that doesn't say the fish in the sea. It doesn't include that, just in my reading. I'm not a historian, but when I read it, it didn't say that the fish were wiped out. It didn't say that the creatures in the sea were. It talked about everything on dry land and things in the air. So then in chapter 8, but God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark. And he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. So that had already happened. The water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of the 150 days, the water had gone down. And on the 17th day of the 7th month, because remember it was the 17th day of the 2nd month that he went in. So on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month, 3 more months. And on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountain, just the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven, and it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground. But the dove could find no place to set its feet because there was water over all the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, he reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days and again sent out the dove from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the water had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again, but this time it did not return to him. He found a home. He's like, I'm good now. Thanks, I'm moving on. By the first day of the 1st month of Noah's 601st year, the water had dried up from the earth. It's like the whole year. Because it was the 600th year of his life. And now he's in the first day of the 601st year of his life. Noah then removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. By the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth was completely dry. So it's a year and 10 days later, because it was the 17th day of the 2nd month, and now it's the 27th day of the 2nd month the following year, a year and 10 days. Then God said to Noah, come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number upon it. So Noah came out, together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives. All the animals and all the creatures that move along the ground and all the birds, everything that moves on the earth, came out of the ark, one kind after another. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, and he already sacrifices them. He sacrificed burnt offerings on it. Okay, it's hard to eat egg. It's beyond our understanding. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, never again will I curse the ground because of man. Even though every inclination of his heart is evil from childhood, and never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. Phew. That was chapter 8. So those were chapters 6, 7, and 8 about the flood. It's deep. That was the first rain. That was the first rain in the Bible. I'm going to bring my sister on. Hopefully she'll come on camera with me. Hello, sister. Hello. She is. Here I am. I just got home, so I'm just making dinner still. I understand. So, wow. It was pretty intense, actually. It was intense. It's a long time. You know, you have no idea how long you're going to be on it. Because he said 40 days. He said 40 days. And you're on a boat with, oh, that's amazing. You're on a boat with all the animals ever. I mean, I worked at a veterinary hospital. I would say what percentage of my job was cleaning up after animals. Oh, you know, I'm sure all the wives, all the husbands, and all the children or whomever were on cleanup duty because that would have been the primary function. Oh my goodness. And even feeding them, making sure they had food for you. Exactly. I don't even know, like one whole section of the boat must have been to house food for all those animals. Right. Do you think they had places to dump it to possible and make sure that, you know, the lion didn't eat them? Hungry, you know, you can't be eating what you eat. So I'm assuming that since God sent them he sent the animals onto the boat, I'm assuming he made it. Yes. Y'all better behave. Don't eat. Don't eat. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I would hope. You know, he didn't take anybody at stasis or anything. Nobody was asleep. There wasn't. Right. It was just all of it. Yeah. Yes. So when they talk about the earth being destroyed by fire the next time, it's just not because of man. I don't know. I have to read about that. I think that's in Revelation, the book of Revelation. I don't know. I mean, you and I have talked many times about the Nephilim. So we've talked about them, and because it says the sons of God lay with the daughters of men. So that sounds like two different types of species. Two different species. Yes. Mm-hmm. Two species. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he didn't just say never again. He said, never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. So even though he said he wasn't going to flood anymore, he also said never again will I destroy all living creatures. So when they talk about, the whole earth being destroyed by fire, I have to read about it. But according to this, it's not just, it can't be water, it can be fire. He said he wouldn't have the goal of mankind. Yeah, that wouldn't be the goal. Yeah. Interesting. And then did you notice, I don't know, what the exhibit is like, but this specifically didn't talk about, water creatures. No, I assumed that anything that lives in the water would probably be fine. Right? Yeah. But it talks about the breath of life, faced with the breath of life. So, yeah, the water creatures should have been fine. Yeah. Which is interesting that they were spared, right? Like he was like, really, I guess if you were going to destroy the earth by water, then everything was collateral damage. Anything that would have gone the earth would be collateral damage. And there should be no other way to ensure that you about all the God good, but in this instance, he just all the animals. When it talks about the clean and unclean animals, what do you think made them unclean? Do you think it was the fact that they ate other animals? No, I think it was the Jewish definition of unclean, like and shellfish, or the shellfish wouldn't count, but yeah, it's a thing. Okay. Interesting. Like pigs or pork is unclean. Yeah. Beef is clean, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know what other animals have a cloven hoof. But yeah, things in the pig family. Yeah, bulls and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they did a sacrifice, like right, you made it for the year, but sorry, I gotta cook you. Yeah, because there wouldn't be any other animals they had populated yet. But I guess it's really about seven pairs, but yes. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And I don't understand the sacrifice piece. I understand a little bit how I heard a pastor talk about why, for instance, he was, and I'd have to go back and listen to it, and I can't remember the message, but it was about how when, for instance, like if something happens and we have an infection, that it sends good cells to basically go attack it and destroy it, to kill the bad cells. And so he was kind of likening that to the sacrifice that
yeah, I could see that. I would need to do some study on that too. When they talk about and the smell was pleasing to the Lord, I'm always like, I was a vegetarian.
right.
Right. I mean, although I will say, steak on a grill smells pretty good, even as vegetarian. I'm sure it doesn't just vegetarian. But yeah, the sacrifice thing, the fact that there are no sacrifices in the New Testament, because Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice. The sacrifice was always hard for me. Understand? And it's always supposed to be something innocent, right? And it's always supposed to be your best. And it's, the first fruits, the fatted cow, it's always supposed to be your best. And maybe it's just giving up something of value to God. But I don't understand the life part, why it has to be the loss of a life.
Yeah. But I also understand you wouldn't want to give a dead thing or a sick thing.
No, but you could give something else of value, but I don't know what it would be.
Right.
Because you're not supposed to value stuff like that. So I don't know. But that sacrifice thing is, like I said, I see it models in Jesus of, best, the first, and most prized.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
I
will not fully comprehend it until it's time for me to comprehend it. Like it's beyond. I didn't set that rule. I don't get that rule, but I am aware of it. So
yeah, and you see it playing out over and over again.
Anyway, all right. Well, thank you for joining me tonight about rainy days and learning about the first rainy day. It was a long rainy season.
Yeah, there's been over a year of rain, and then 40 days and nights of rain, and then it wasn't really raining anymore, but it was like water world.
It was water world. Yeah. 20 feet above the highest mountain, just thinking about how much water that was. And then you had to blow on it. And then even after blowing on it, still had to wait for it to dry up. So
right. And him blowing on it, was that just it was around, what was that like? Yeah, and all those animals, and I'm sure with my luxury situation, just I'm a cruise girl, but that's a lot. And I wonder how many people were there. We don't know exactly how many.
His 3 sons and their wives, but I don't know if they had children yet. And it was him and his wife. So it could have just been 4 couples, or it could have been 4 couples and then the Grams.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. That's a lot, and yet again, like in Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah, but he was on one. Only one was worth 2 dead flies all mashed up. All the rest of them were like, no, put a bit of bucket.
I know, and Spring and I were talking earlier this week. Her spirit was just so grieved over. I think the guy who threw his kid to the alligator, and just there have been such horrific things going on with just around the world. And she said, I can't take the evil. I can't take the evil. And I can only imagine God looking like, you're throwing your babies to alligators, you're letting people shoot up the schools, you're doing sex trafficking and child trafficking, and you're mistreating your own, but shooting it up, you're slave to your flesh and doing whatever your flesh says, and not taking care of your spirit at all, and then being so ugly with your words toward everybody.
Yeah, that's it toward everybody. Yeah. Social media, we have just decided it has so many things that are blessings on it, and then it has just allowed us to be so ugly. So ugly to each other. were not right without a second thought. And yeah, I do wonder. I can't imagine if these were my children behaving this way, right? If I had a child who was, and I think a lot of, things we see with somebody throwing their kitchen, that's madness. You know what I mean? There's illness there. But the ugliness we see and how we treat each other, that's just the choice. It's the choice that we believe.
And just like you said, it pained him. It wasn't anger. It pained him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, we're not in this position, but it does make you wonder, what would you do if you had children who started killing other children?
Mm-hmm. I know. When I was in psych class, we had, a professor, he was already, and I mean, that's how many years ago, right? When I was in school, 20 minimum. And he was concerned because they showed the experiment where they gave rabbits the electric shock, like the floor was electrified, and they would shock them. And he said, when I started teaching 20, 30 years before that, he was like, people were horrified at that. He said, now people laugh. And he said, and he told us about a mother lioness who gives birth to 3 cubs, and one cub beats up on the other cubs, and she said that the first time she sees it, she shakes him, like, don't do that. And the second time she sees it, she shakes him, and the third time she sees it, she kills him, because she knows that this one's broken and he's going to harm others. And I just wonder about that responsibility and recognizing, why your kids is not right and is ultimately going to harm it. The guy who went to Tennessee Bank, his mom called 911 and said he's on his way with a gun. He was a really good kid. He hasn't done anything. But by the time she was on the phone with him, they were telling her that the shooting is already happening. I just don't understand. I don't know what kind of hell she's in right now.
Wow. When I can watch Criminal Minds and those kinds of shows, and they talk about the trifecta of, killing small animals and setting fires. Like, there are certain behaviors. I can't remember the third one, but there are 3. It's a trifecta. And if they see those 3 things, one of which is killing small animals, one of which is setting fires, and I can't remember the third, that they are major markers for a child who is going to be a sociopath or a psychopath and end up doing harm to others.
Yeah. Yeah. And even that is a mental illness of brokenness, that I don't know that we can fix, but at least we know that it's not that you don't really have the capacity for getting it right. You know what I mean? Like, there's something really broken, something really missing. But the reason she's like, done. Right. It doesn't matter. The casual cruelty of people who are not mentally ill to each other, that's the part that has to completely grieve. But this is how we treat each other.
It's interesting that in the first sentence of chapter 6, verse 1, he mentions corrupt specifically, not just cruel, but corrupt twice. It was actually, no, not then. It was, I'll find it corrupt, but I was just looking at, the Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time.
Yeah, it's like a muscle. I mean, we can get in that groove. It's like social media, and there are people who you see on social media, and they're major. All they do is snark.
Yep.
All they do is snark. All they do is look for a reason to be outraged and respond to it with snark.
right? And if somebody says something positive, they're looking for something negative to add to it, just always. Yeah. It's in 11. It says, now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. And 12, God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. And really, you know, I'm thinking about corruption and just what is that? When you know the right to do and don't do it for selfish reasons.
I guess. I guess, you know, at what point is anything can become the norm for us? And at what point do you lose the capacity? You know, it's like it's sitting against the Holy Spirit. At what point do you lose the capacity to recognize that this is a problem? That this behavior is not normal. This is, you know, that this is a bad thing. But you know what I mean? At what point do you lose that capacity? And to me, that's what is bad. That's where the corruption is to me, not corruption in the sense of crime, but corruption in the sense of the programming that is corrupted. And so, like you don't even understand now that, because I feel like if God would say, okay, well, you delegated it wrong because you don't know this. You know, let me show you better. When you get to that part where, oh, this is corrupted. Like, you know, it's like, I need to reboot. Then that, you know, those are people who, even if you tell me that it's wrong, that I'm wrong, that I'm doing wrong, I don't believe you. It does feel like we're there. It really does. I hate that it feels like that, but it really does.
Anyway, thank you all for joining us for this first reading in the Bible, Genesis 6, 7, and 8, about Noah and the flood. And let's give us some food for thought. Let's give it lots of thought and figure out how we can do better. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Thank you, sister, for joining me. And I'm gonna sign off the live. See you next week, you guys.